Cogito, ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. First said by Rene Descartes in, I think, the 16th or the 17th century. What it really means is, I think, as in, I have an original thoughts, therefore I am. Or what he meant in context is, that is why I exist. My thoughts, my original train of thinking is a confirmation that I exist. Why did he say that? Well, Rene Descartes had a particular problem with optical, auditory or olfactory illusions of his time, right? And what he found extremely distressing is he could not differentiate between reality and his illusions. And he wanted a solution to this extremely perplexing problem, or so he thought, right? And he came up with Cogito, ergo sum. But here's where he was wrong. And of course, I've got my notebook here with me today. Cogito, ergo sum relies on the fickleness of human perception, stating that a train of thought is the only way an independent output can be produced not using an external stimuli. However, the differentiating line between a scientist and a schizophrenic is the flesh, a perceival of reality, and yet reality is perceived by our thoughts. What I mean by this is, Rene Descartes failed to take into account the stupidity of what our thoughts can achieve, the complete impertinence to an actually important topic that our human minds can achieve, right? And notice when I say, however, the differentiating line between a scientist and a schizophrenic is the flesh. What I mean by this is that a scientist and a schizophrenic both dream equally big, right? A scientist sees ideas in the air, and so does a schizophrenic. The only problem is that a schizophrenic sees ideas while they're not real, and a scientist sees ideas while they are real. Or at least a scientist sees ideas in the air which can be turned into a tangible reality, right? And why does this matter is because both the schizophrenic and the scientist have an equally original thought. The schizophrenic has never experienced anything like this before and probably never will, and neither has the scientist. I'm talking about a scientist that is receiving a genuine creative inspiration right now. And furthermore, or in continuity, reality is real because we allow it to be, but the moment we do not deem reality to exist, it no longer does. If we were to close our eyes, close our ears, close our noses, close our mouth, and become immune to all perception of touch, we probably wouldn't understand whether we existed or not. We would have recurring thoughts inside our brain, probably memories playing over and over and over again. But if we had no sense of input, then our self-awareness would not have anything to talk about, or would not have anything to be aware of. And therefore, we couldn't perceive reality to exist even if it did. And in continuity, yet when it does, we are bound by its constraints. By this, what I mean is that a completely original thought still has to be realistic. By this, if I could have a completely original thought of being a giraffe with 5 legs and the fins of a penguin, I probably wouldn't become a giraffe with 5 legs and the fins of a penguin in a million years, even if I tried to, right? And that's because even though this is an original thought, and this is something I came up with it right now, by the way, and even though this is an original thought, it still has no meaning to it. It's still completely redundant. When we say that we are bound by its constraints, we mean that reality as a perception still has to be bound by something outside it. And of course, recent breakthroughs in quantum physics, the Nobel Prize in Physics for 2023 and 2024, they kind of do come into contradiction with this. But at this point, the likelihood of it occurring on a macro level size is so improbable that it doesn't occur at all. So there are concepts in quantum physics like quantum entanglement, quantum tunneling. The only reason it doesn't happen is because the probability of it happening in an observable amount is only when concerning subatomic particles, very, very small particles. Subatomic means smaller than an atom. So essentially we're talking something that's smaller than, in many cases, in neutron, proton and electron too. The likelihood of it happening at a level of observation that we choose to do or we go through every day is so little that it could not make a difference. And of course, but this is something that relates to our train of thoughts more than our observations in physical experiments. And so in continuity, and I'd like to end off with a quote here. We can flip the switch, but we cannot change the nature of the light bulb. And I think this sums up whatever I said in this video perfectly. We can flip the switch, but we cannot change the nature of the light bulb. What this means is that we can flip the switch, meaning we can either choose to perceive reality as it is, or we can choose to perceive it as an illusion. But once we choose to see or we choose not to see, what we see is what is shown to us. We cannot change the nature of the light bulb. That is not in our control. Right? And I think today was a relatively short video, but a very important, if not one of the most important videos at least. So there you have it. Cogito ergo sum, broken down, potentially proving Rene Descartes was incomplete in his thoughts.